Feel comfortable when you find your seats. You can rise or stand as you're comfortable and sing with us. Or if you don't know this song at all, you can just vibe with us. That's cool too. We're just glad you're here.
Hold my hand when you need to let go. I can be a mountain when you're feeling valley low. I can be your street light, showing you the way home. You can hold my hand when you need to let go. And I want a house with a crowded table. don't they? Yeah. All right, y'all can have a seat.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, kids. Everybody take a deep breath. I was just running around, getting our live stream going. Hello, Facebook viewers. You are now live. My name is Jeremy. I'm the pastor here of the Grove Cottage Grove, and it is so good to be with you on this beautiful, absolutely beautiful October morning. We're going to have a really good experience over the next hour, and then we're going to send you out into the beauty of this world to enjoy the rest of your day. We are a brand new church that exists to grow goodness. So we hope that every time that you are with us, every time that you interact with us, whether you're in the room with us or you're watching online or you're out in the community interacting with us, that somehow you are experiencing the deepening of curiosity and sense of awe in your life.
I'm Miranda, and I'd like to bring everybody's attention to the pamphlet here. You would have gotten one at the front door. On the inside, there's a little brochure. If you can fill some of that out, give us some information about you. Also, there are a few ways you guys can give too. There's a basket at the back there that you can put donations in. We do a Venmo, and then there's also a link online that you can donate to as well. If you're online watching, don't do it at the same time, only because it will boot you out.
A couple more things while you have this in your hand. First of all, we have the insert. So if you are new with us and you want to let us know that you're here and you want us to follow up with you about specific things that you're interested in, you can fill that out and put it in the offering basket later in the service, right at the back of the worship center. There's also the back side where you can call out specific things that you are interested in learning about. And then also, if you have any prayer requests, you can put prayer requests in there and we share those with. You can designate who you want them to be shared with so that we can be joining you in praying about the things that are important to you. On the backhand side of the worship handout, we have the 3 most important things to be directing your attention to this month. These are new, so I do want to turn your attention to them. First of all, we're starting a new worship series today called Atlas of the Heart. Obviously, you're going to be hearing much more about that in the time ahead this morning. Atlas of the Heart, based on the book by Brené Brown. Any of you read Brené Brown? It's fantastic. You're going to be hearing much more about her and her work in the 5 weeks ahead. Second of all, we are spending this month focusing on ways to get people involved. Each of our services this month has included a sign up to serve part where we talk to one of our ministry team leads about the opportunities to get involved. We would really love for everybody who considers this church to be their church home to find a place where they can use their gifts and passions to be able to contribute to the church and also to be able to help us to welcome the people who are arriving next. If you are interested in looking at all of the different opportunities, our webpage, which is thegrovecg.church/get involved, or if you just want to scan the QR code, it lays out all of the different opportunities that we have. Then the last thing is billions of stories, none like yours. One of the things that we're realizing as we continue to grow this community is we have a growing number of people who are either finding faith for the first time or renewing their faith in a way that feels new. And we want to be able to celebrate that. We want to acknowledge the transformation that you're experiencing in your lives, to be able to celebrate it with you, and to be able to help you tell your story to other people who might also find that compelling and be like, oh, actually, that kind of feels like my story too. So if you find yourself in that position where you're like, you know what, as a part of being a part of this church, I have experienced transformation in my life for the first time or for the first time in a long time. We want to know that. We want to celebrate with you and to help you to tell your story to other people. Again, we're going to be focusing on that a lot as we get into this fall so that we can share more and more of those stories.
So kids are huge here at the Grove. Today's going to be a little bit different because we're not going to have Godly Play today, where the kids are going to be in here. There's a bunch of activities to keep them occupied. There's coloring, there's some foam blocks, quiet toys. Normal days, we're going to usually sing them off on with a song to go out to Godly Play. Today is not one of those days. Today, it is going to be lots of kids.
We do have nursery available, so the nursery is still available for kiddos from 6 weeks old to 3 years old. And that is staffed out there. If, however, you parents figure out that I need to bring my kid out, you're welcome to do that. If they are outside of that age range, though, we ask that you go with them. We also, in the nursery now, have the live stream going. So if you want to bring your kid out there so that they can play outside of the worship center, that's an option, and you'll be able to follow along with the worship service, too. At this point, we're going to move into the introvert's least favorite part of the service, what we call connection point. As a new church, we recognize that building relationships and making connections is extremely important because we are all new at this. And so what we do is we take a couple minutes to have you stand up, find somebody next to you that you don't know or don't know very well, introduce yourself, and then we give you a prompt. We give you a discussion question to be able to introduce that conversation. Sometimes we go pretty dense, pretty heavy, pretty serious, and then other times, like today, we get a little bit more goofy. So today's question is, what's your worst family photo experience? So you might have a family photo experience like this, that you can look back and you're like, you have the albums from when you were growing up or from when your kids were little, and you look at it now and like, what were we thinking? Maybe it's like that, or maybe it's a family photo experience like this. You had all of the best intentions in mind, and then things went horribly wrong. So if you have a worst photo family experience, discuss that. If you don't have a worst family photo experience, it's okay. You can find other things to connect with somebody about. So again, stand up, find somebody next to you that you don't know or don't know very well, introduce yourself, and discuss this question. We'll reconvene in just a couple minutes.
Okay, find your way back. Come on back. We love recalling a good horror story, don't we? A good family disaster story. It's always so much fun to talk about later. All right, thanks for taking a few moments to connect. Just a couple of reminders of our space. We have a prayer wall up here. This is new to us this fall. If you need a place to just write down a thought, something that's really important to you, and sort of hand it over to God or to your community in a very tangible way, you can use that at any time. And we always have a worship wall activity back here that relates to whatever series we're in. Usually our worship wall space is a place where we do sort of a collaborative, creative thing that we contribute to. But during this series, it's more of an activity. It's not really an activity. It's just something you can go to that wall, read what's on the wall, and receive something that maybe your spirit needs this week. So do that, either of those at any point during the service. All right, let's sing together again. Now that you're all comfy, if you would, let's rise and sing together. For everyone born, a place at the table. For everyone born, clean water and bread. people to live without fear and simply to be, to work, to speak out, to witness and worship for everyone born the right to be free. Amen. Y'all can have a seat.
So as I mentioned earlier, we have been spending this month, each Sunday, taking a few minutes to talk about our different ministry teams. We've been growing so much. We've been having so many new people come through, which is amazing as a new church. And in order to absorb the new people coming in, we've been having to get people involved as quickly as possible so that we can adequately actually welcome the people who are arriving next. So we've been focusing on different ministry team every week. Katie and I have been going back and forth, doing interviews of the different ministry team leads. And when it came to this week, I asked Katie earlier in the week when we were meeting, which of us wants to do the interview this week? Well, we have worship arts this week, so it'd be a little bit awkward if Katie interviewed herself. But we've probably done more awkward things.
I'm actually really good at talking to myself. But this is better.
Yeah, this is.
Your job will be to not let me talk too much, because there's so many things I could talk about with worship arts.
I'm good at that. We have this little thing called a talkback mic. I don't know if you know this, where the person on the board can talk to the people on the stage in their ears and nobody else can hear. We've been using it pretty regularly, including this morning to wrap up the connection point time. We don't use it that much. Okay, so Katie, who are you and what team do you lead?
Hello, my name is Katie Eckeberger, and I am the worship arts director here at the Grove. So I'm the first. No, Chelsea's on staff too. Some of us team leads are staff, some of us are volunteer. I am on staff.
All right. What is the purpose of your team?
I know this, but I just don't want to forget anything. So our purpose of the worship arts team is to create worship experiences that are meaningful, dynamic, engaging, experiential, hopefully inspiring. There's lots of ways we do that. So I'll break up my team into 3 parts because it's a broad team. First part, well, let's see. The first part is creative arts. Second part is tech, back of house. And then the third part is front of house, what you see up here. So the first part, the creative arts people, this is anybody who is creative in any way that would like to contribute to worship. What we have currently going is a group of people who talk through a Facebook Messenger thread or otherwise, and we develop ideas of ways to create engaging, interesting worship experiences here, with the worship wall. That's a thing we plan and execute together, and other things. There's so much room for the creative arts within worship. We haven't used a lot of you yet in different ways, unconventional ways. We see music and preaching. We know that's going to be a part of a worship service. There's lots of other things that could happen too. If you're a performing artist of any kind, with theater or dance or anything like that, maybe we could work that in. If you do any sort of visual art, like painting or digital art, we can work that in. If you're a spoken word performer, if you are a writer, like Melinda over here is an incredible writer. We've been working in her meditations and prayers throughout worship from time to time. If there's anything you do creatively that you're I wonder if this would contribute to our worship experience, yes, come talk to me. We want this to not just be a canned music and preaching every week. We want it to be a reflection and an expression of our community. Okay, and you know what? If there's any kids that want to come sit up here, this applies to kids too, because anything in worship arts, there's no age limit. So if you are a kid and you are interested in music or tech, you can totally come sit up here and listen. All right, let's talk about the second area, back of house, which is our tech team. There's 3 primary roles on this team that I schedule every week. The first being our our slides person. Piper, can you wave? Piper's back there
Hey, Piper.
at the computer, and they are helping us today run slides. So everything you see up here, that is a can be a simple job to jump into. You're clicking through the slides, maybe making some light edits, so a lot of people could do that. We have Abby back here today at the soundboard. Abby, make sure you can hear us and make sure that we sound good. That is a super important job. Those are both roles that we schedule every single week. And we like to rotate people so nobody gets burnt out or has to be back there every week, because sometimes you want to be out here experiencing worship. And then a third role, which we haven't been able to schedule every week, but that we've had occasionally, is someone to simply run the live stream camera. And Alex, would you raise your hand? Alex is awesome. When he's here, sometimes he sits back there and runs the live stream. And Alex are you in middle school? Y'all, middle schoolers are showing up and doing these jobs. That is amazing. In the band as well. We'll talk about that in a minute. But when I say there's not age limits, it's more of a matter of maturity level and if you're trainable. So if you're interested in tech, come talk to me. All right, third thing is music. This is an obvious one, but this is also front of house. I say front of house because it's not just music. Like, we have speakers and readers as well. Like what Miranda did today, that's what we call a service leader. Service leaders help with announcements. When we have communion Sundays, they help serve communion. I would also love to have so many different people up here reading prayers, and like Advent is coming up. We usually have a family or a household get up and read some scripture and light the Advent candle. These are all things that I need to, and if you have like stage fright, don't worry about it. But if you're a person who's comfortable reading some stuff in front of people, I would love to know, because that's a great, really simple way for us to include more people up here on stage. And then music is obviously a big one. Let's talk about music. Contextually, our worship team is one that is a hybrid worship team. Some churches have all volunteers on their worship team. Some churches, usually bigger ones, have all hired people on their worship team. Full disclosure, our team is both hired professionals and volunteers. And if you want to know more about that, I can share with you why we do it that way. But right now, we're a little on the heavy side of professional musicians playing on this team, and we don't have very many volunteers from within the church. And I would like to change that. Not because I'm trying to get rid of our gigging musicians that come in. They're actually all really incredible, and we love having them. But again, we want the people up here to be a reflection of who is out there. This is your church, and this is your worship team. And this is for kids too, right? Chloe. Chloe has sang with us more than once. So we want this to be an inclusive space as well. The one thing I'll say with the hybrid worship team situation is I understand that if you're sitting out there and if you're a more novice level musician, or if you've just never participated in church music in this kind of context, this can be kind of intimidating because these players are really good. And I don't want it to be a place that's intimidating. I think this is actually a really great opportunity to get involved if you're a novice musician, or if you need to, pick your guitar back up after a decade of not playing it or whatever, because a lot of our professional musicians that we bring in are music educators themselves, and they're not only used to working with people who are learning, but it's a thing that they love to do. And they're just like really cool people. I don't know how we haven't had a bad egg yet, but every person we've brought in to serve in this way has been a really cool individual who's inclusive. They know that from the beginning. I say listen, our church is inclusive, and if you're not down with that, I don't know if this is gonna work. And they're like, I'm actually really glad you said that, because I don't know that I would want to be at a church that's not. So these people that we're bringing in here are, if this isn't their home church, they are supportive of what we do. So this is like a loving, safe place, and it is less intimidating than it might seem. The second thing that I want to say about music is, if you have played or sang music in a different musical context, and you're not sure if your instrument or your voice will work here, I want you to not worry about that. Like maybe you play an orchestral instrument, and you're not sure how that would fit into this band. Or maybe you've only sung in choir before and you're not sure if you could sing on a worship team. Last week we had Amanda back there. She has previously sung in choirs, and it was her first time on a worship team last week, and she did amazing. That's a thing that can be taught. We can help you with that. Or if, yeah, you did great. It was so great having you. And like orchestral instruments can sometimes be worked into this context, or if nothing else, like, I don't know, if you play French horn or something, how cool would it be to hear like a French horn solo in this room? It would be glorious. Or if you're a kid and you're taking piano lessons and you want to learn a song to play in church, we can do that, okay? So if you have a skill set and knowledge in music and you would like to express that here, let's talk and figure out how we can do that, even if it's unconventional. And then the last thing we already touched on is this is an all ages experience. Like we've had Chloe sing, we'll have like a little kids choir over Christmas time. We've had people of all ages serving in this capacity. You probably mostly see people in their 20s and 30s, but that's not on purpose. It's just most of the people that we have. But please don't let age be a factor that deters you from this experience. I think I covered all of the
you covered a
things.
lot. So we have one more question. When we talk about getting involved, we're really clear about we don't just want to plug you into something that we have a need. We really do want you to connect with a role where you're using your gifts and passions, not just filling a need for us that you're going to be miserable in. That being said, sometimes we've got openings, and it's like things that we need to do in order to do what we do. I know, that was a lot of do's. Are there any particular areas in which we have the most need when it comes to worship arts?
Tech, probably. Most of our volunteers on the tech team also serve in other volunteer roles outside of here on Sunday mornings. So I want to prevent burnout. That's a thing like a lot of people experience at other churches is burnout from volunteering in all the places and doing all the things. And we want this to continue to be a fun, enjoyable, laid-back experience. To do that, growing teams is important so that nobody gets burnt out. So like in the tech team, if we added a couple more people, everybody'd only be serving once every 4 or 5 weeks, and that's like a pretty good system there. One thing, I don't know if I mentioned this about tech, these are trainable roles. Whereas like music, you've got to have some background, you've got to have some skill set and knowledge already. But with tech, like most of our volunteers back there are doing these roles for the very first time ever. They've all learned and been trained in this or are still learning. Yep. So don't let that scare you away. Really, the only requirement I feel like with tech is like good working eyes and ears and an ability to pay attention for long periods of time. If you can pay attention and your eyes and ears are working, you can be trained in tech.
Yeah. All right. Anything else?
I think that's all I can think of right now. So just come talk to me, and again, like let's not be afraid to brainstorm. If you've got something you want to contribute creatively and you're wondering if it'll work, just come talk to me and we'll figure it out. And I think that's it.
Okay.
This is so fun. I love my job. Thank you.
The other thing you could do is if you fill out the worship handout on the backhand side, there are boxes. One of them is volunteering. If you check that box this week, we're going to assume that that's indicating that you have interest in learning more about worship arts, okay? So if you're intimidated by Katie, or if you just need to head out and you don't have the opportunity to chat with her afterwards, go ahead and fill out the worship insert, check that box, and we'll make sure that she follows up with you. All right, let's give Katie a hand.
And the team.
So this is MEA. We've already talked about the kids being in the worship center. And so to start my message today, I wanted to actually acknowledge and include the kids. And this is not the time, this is not like the kids' sermon time where all the adults check out. Okay? You're going to get something out of this too. But I'm going to have the kids come up here. All you kids who are in here, I have something for you that when you're done listening to the boring guy, I'm going to give you that you can then go and do for the next 15 minutes while I'm chatting away, okay? So you can sit up here. I think we've got enough room to be able to squeeze up here. Otherwise, if anybody wants to sit in this on the floor or in that second row, you can. Thanks, Owen. Okay. So I have a couple questions for you today. Do any of you know what this is? When I pull it up on the phone. What is it? Go ahead and just say it. A map. Google Maps. Theo's got it. Google Maps. So that's exactly what I was looking for. So this is a map that's right on your phone, and you can zoom in. And I zoomed in right to where, what does it say there? The Grove United. That's right where we are. Crazy, right? Yeah, you kids are like, that's not a big deal at all. What is this? This is a map. This is a paper map, right? For most of human history, for most of the time that there have been people in the world, if there were maps, they looked something like this. They were paper. When I was in college, there was this crazy new thing called MapQuest, where you could go on the internet and you could type up a location, and then you could print it off onto a piece of paper, and then you could bring that piece of paper with you. And even now, Theo's like, oh. You have no idea how revolutionary the idea of having a map on your phone that can show you exactly where you are and exactly where you need to go. Why do we have maps? Why do you think we have maps? Go ahead, anybody. To get around. So we know where we're going. So we don't get lost. Yeah. To find our way home. Yeah. So. You could use stars too. Yeah. So maps help us to understand the world. They help us to understand where we are and to make sense of where we are and to figure out what's important. You put things on a map because they're important things to know, right? And they help us to know then where to go and what to do and how to navigate our world, right? Emotions are kind of like that too. You know what emotions are? Feelings are kind of like that too. I have another picture I'm going to ask you about. Do you know what these things are called? Emojis. What are emojis for? Expressing how you feel. That's exactly right. So they're like pictures that show other people how you're actually feeling that maybe words don't fully do. So what does this first emoji mean? Happy crying. So you're laughing so hard that you're crying. What about that one right there? Could be scared, sad, unsure. Any of those things? Yeah. Oh, what about that one? Mad. That one's pretty easy. And then how about this bottom one? Love. It's something that you love. Yeah, absolutely. So we use emojis to express our feelings, and feelings are kind of like maps too. They help us to, if we pay attention to our feelings, they help us to understand what's going on in our world, what's going on in our bodies even, and they help us to know what's important and to pay attention to that, and then how to live with those feelings. Sometimes people try to hide their feelings, and what we're talking about this next month, as adults even, is the importance of our feelings. Sometimes we have big feelings, and that's okay. Feelings are normal. Feelings can be good. They show us what's important. They show us then how to live and how to go from here to there in life, okay? So the one takeaway I want you to have today is to know that feelings are good and important, and they can be helpful, like a map. So I now have an activity for all of you. You get to walk away with a map too. You're going to be making a map, okay? So each of you are going to be creating a map just like this. So there's a key on here which tells you what to do with your treasure map. So why don't each of you come up here and grab a map, And then if you can't read, maybe go back to your parents quickly and they can describe it. Or you can just, what? Make sure we don't light any kids on fire? Or light any maps on fire? Yeah, go ahead, Daniel. All right. Thank you, kids. Okay, so just like our kids, we're going to talk about feelings this month, folks, and big feelings. How many of you, how many of you adults, when you hear the idea that we're going to talk about feelings, you have big feelings yourself? I don't want to talk about my feelings. Yeah. Feelings can be uncomfortable to talk about, and yet what we're going to be talking about this whole month, looking at, we're calling it Atlas of the Heart. We're focusing on some of the content from the book Atlas of the Heart by Brené Brown. And what we're trying to do through this series is to acknowledge some of these big feelings that we have as people and to put language behind them. The hope is that we can notice our feelings, that we can, in acknowledging them, we can start to make meaning of them and why we're feeling them. And then having noticed them and made meaning of them, we can try to figure out how to navigate life with those feelings, kind of like a map. Notice I didn't say to deal with those feelings, and that I didn't say to ignore those feelings. Kind of like on a map, if you're looking at it and there's a mountain, or there's a lake, or there's a cliff, it's not going to be super helpful to you if you see that and you're like, I just need to ignore it, or I just need to deal with it. In order to actually to go where you need to be going, you got to figure out how to navigate it. So you got to acknowledge it. And so what we're going to be doing through the course of this series is noticing, making meaning of, and then navigating some of these feelings that we have as people and as followers of Jesus. So today what we're going to be talking about, our focus is going to be on the feelings of insecurity, of invisibility, and of loneliness. So those three feelings that you might just put into one big bucket of disconnection, the feeling of not being connected. Now, in our crazy world, there's lots going on. There's lots of important things, really big things that can be pretty heavy. Why is it important to focus on something like disconnection? Like, that doesn't seem like it's very important or worthwhile. Until you look at some of the data and the health impacts even of the feeling of disconnection. Here's some of the health impacts of disconnection. Just one data point. I'll pull these up, Piper. Living with air pollution increases your odds of dying early by 5%. You're 5% more likely to die early because of air pollution. If you are living with obesity, it is 20% more likely that you're going to die early. If you drink excessively, you are 30% more likely to die early. If you live with loneliness increases the odds of dying early by 45%. 45%. If you have this feeling of this ongoing feeling of disconnection, you are 45% more likely to die early. Yikes. So that's disconnection and the impact of disconnection. But then on the opposite side, the other side of it, hopefully, is the feeling of connection. And Brené Brown in the book Atlas of the Heart says this about connection. She defines it as, connection is the energy that exists between people when they feel seen, heard, and valued. When they can give and receive without judgment, and when they derive sustenance and strength from relationship. The feeling of being seen, heard, and valued. Now, when it comes to feelings like this, even and especially the feeling of disconnection, of insecurity, and of of loneliness. One of the best places that we can do, or one of the best places we can go to navigate those feelings is the Bible. Now, I want to acknowledge something up front, because if you have been around here at all, you've probably heard me say in the past that the Bible is not a map that shows you exactly where to go. Does that sound familiar? You've heard me say that before? So now here I am today talking about the Bible and talking about maps, and you could easily jump to, you are completely contradicting yourself. Have you changed your mind? Are you just contradicting yourself? No, neither of those things. I will reiterate it again. The Bible is not a map that if you just figure out the key and how to read it, it's going to show you exactly how to get from one place to another. But one of the helpful things that we find in the Bible is not necessarily a map, but we find map makers. We have people who are trying to navigate the messiness of life and faith. They're trying to notice things that are important. They're trying to make meaning of them and then to navigate life going forward. And so what we have is individual people going through life saying, okay, given all these things, how might I navigate life? And as we read them, thousands of years later, we can start saying to ourselves, oh, well, if someone else has gone through this, maybe this is a path that I might consider as well. One of the most prominent places that we see this is in the Psalms. So throughout this series, we're going to be looking at the book of Psalms. And the reason we're doing this is because the Psalms are not just poems and songs. They're often known primarily as a book of poems and songs. But really what the psalmists do is they open up about all that is going on in their life, all that is going on in their experience of faith. And often they're doing it in very real and raw ways that we as people living through the realness and rawness of everyday life can point to and say, oh, I'm not the only one who has experience this. And so when it comes to the feeling of disconnection, we have specifically the Psalm 22, which we are going to dig into today. I just want to acknowledge that we have the whole Psalm here. It's 20 some verses. It's long, so hang with me. But I wanted to include all of it because I wanted you to feel like the emotional swing that happens here, okay? So this is Psalm 22. My God, why have you abandoned me? I groan in prayer, but help seems far away. My God, I cry out during the day, but you do not answer, and during the night my prayers do not let up. You are holy, you sit as king, receiving the praises of Israel. In you our ancestors lived, in you they trusted, and they were. I am a worm, not a man. People insult me and despise me. All who see me taunt me. They mock me and shake their heads. They say, commit yourself to the Lord. Let the Lord rescue him. Let the Lord deliver him, for he delights in the Lord. Yes, you are the one who brought me out from the womb and made me feel secure on my mother's breast. I have been dependent on you since birth. From the time I came out of my mother's womb, you have been my God. Do not remain far away from me, for trouble is near, and I have no one to help me. Many bulls surround me, powerful bulls of Bashan hem me in. They open their mouths to devour me like a roaring lion that rips its prey. My strength drains away like water. All my bones are dislocated. My heart is like wax. It melts away inside me. The roof of my mouth is as dry as a piece of pottery. My tongue sticks to my gums. You sent me in the dust of death. Yes, wild dogs surround me. A gang of evil men crowd around me. Like a lion, they pin my hands and feet. I can count all my bones. My enemies are gloating over me in triumph. They are dividing up my clothes among themselves. They are rolling dice for my garments. Whew. But you, O Lord, do not remain far from me. You are my source of strength. Hurry and help me. Deliver me from the sword. Save my life and from the claws of wild dogs. Rescue me from the mouth of the lion and from the horns of the wild oxen. You have answered me. I will declare your name to my countrymen. In the middle of the assembly, I will praise you. You loyal followers of the Lord, praise God. All you descendants of Jacob, honor God. All you descendants of Israel, stand in awe of God. For God did not despise or detest the suffering of the oppressed. God did not ignore him. When he cried out to God, God responded. You are the reason I offer praise in the great assembly. I will fulfill my promises before the Lord's loyal followers. Let the oppressed eat and be filled. Let those who seek God's help praise the Lord. May you live forever. Let all the people of the earth acknowledge the Lord and turn to God. Let all the nations worship you. For the God is king and rules over nations. All the thriving people of the earth will join the celebration and worship. All those who are descending into the grave will bow down before God, including those who cannot preserve their lives. A whole generation will serve God. They will tell the next generation about the Lord. They will come and tell about his saving deeds. They will tell a future generation what God has accomplished. Whew. It's a mouthful, right? The beginning of that passage might sound familiar because those are the words that Jesus says. This is the psalm that he quotes when he's hanging up on the cross. He says, "My God, why have you abandoned me?" This psalmist is not holding back. Right from the get-go, he says, I have been asked to do all of these things. I've been told if I do and say these things that you will be near, but you're nowhere to be found. You've abandoned me. He's real and raw about that experience of disconnection. And yet, just a few verses later, after saying, you're nowhere to be found, he says, you are near to me. What on earth is going on here? How can both of those things be true? How can he be both abandoned and that God can be near? And we could say that both of those things cannot be true at the same time. Or we could say, this is someone that we are watching in the process of writing this psalm doing meaning making. This is a map maker who's doing it on the fly in the experience of life, who's wrestling with this feeling of disconnection, who's noticing those feelings, and then having noticed those feelings is starting to make meaning of them, and then having made meaning of them is trying to figure out how to navigate life with those feelings. And as he does that, by the end of the psalm, he's arriving in a different place than where he started, because he's acknowledging that in the process of processing, what he's acknowledging is that he has been seen, he has been heard, he is valued, he has this sense of connection within God's work in the past, but also within this faith community of which he is a part. A faith community is the spot where he is feeling seen and heard and valued. Isn't that a revolutionary idea? How amazing would it be for a faith community to be a primary spot where you could go to notice your feelings, to make meaning of them, and to navigate life with them? Wouldn't it be amazing for a faith community to be a primary spot where you could be seen and heard and valued? And isn't it a shame that for the majority of the history of the church that this has not been the case? That even today, 2,000 years after the life of Jesus, that this is not the primary experience for most people with church? Isn't it a shame that this is not possibly, maybe even probably, not the experience that you have had as a part of being with a church? That stinks. And I have stronger words than that, but the kids are in the room, so I'm not going to use those stronger words, but that stinks. And that is exactly why we exist as a church. This is exactly why the minute you look at the front page of our website, the front page of our worship handout, as soon as you walk in the door, we lead with our welcome statement. This is why we talk repeatedly about deepening our curiosity and sense of awe and expanding our circle of inclusion. This is why we talk repeatedly about envisioning and inviting and welcoming the people arriving next. This is why we emphasize grove groups so heavily, because we want to exist as that type of church where people can be seen and heard and valued just as they are. This is what Brené Brown says about those feelings, and the feeling specifically of connection. Piper, can you hit that next slide? We want to be part of something, to experience real connection with others, but not at the cost of our authenticity, freedom, or power. True belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. So a few years ago, I used to make the joke all the time that I needed to go to the gym to get in shape, but I needed to get in shape before going to the gym to get in shape. Which doesn't make any sense until you think about it, because I did not want to go to the gym in order to get in shape, having not been in shape, and making a fool out of myself in front of the gym rats. Right? So here's maybe an example. When you get to the gym, but you're so tired from life. I did not want to look like this kid and make a fool of myself. And yet, that's the point of a gym. The point of a gym is to go to that place in order to find a place to belong, and maybe to find a place to get in shape. And yet I think that so often this is the idea that people have around church, and that churches have around church. Get yourself in shape before showing up. What a shame. That stinks. And so if you are a person who just happens to be watching online or happens to be in this room today, and you're like, I got to get myself into shape before showing up to this place, you don't need to worry about getting into shape. Bring your sweaty, stinky, out of shape self and find a place where you can belong, where you can be seen and heard and valued alongside other people. And as a church, may we never expect that people show up in shape. If that's the case, if we're only accepting people who are in shape, I'm walking out that door, and I would encourage you to as well. Instead, may we be the type of community that creates space for those people who are showing up sweaty and exhausted. May we show up sweaty and exhausted. And hopefully when that happens, we can also show up with a towel and some refreshment as well. So, may that be so.
For our last song today, we want to share one with you that we've only done once before, so it'll be pretty fresh to all of you, but it feels perfect for today. And it's this idea, centering around this idea of the church as a belonging place centered around faith. And the writer of this song is writing from his personal experience, so we may not all totally resonate with some of these lyrics, because some of it's really specific about a time when he just ditched church and wasn't sure if he ever wanted to come back. We have people in this room who've grown up in church their whole lives and have never left. We have people in our church that are new to Christianity for the first time ever. And then we have a lot of us in the in-between space who've maybe been going back and forth with God over the years. All of that is valid and welcome here, obviously. And so whatever in this song, if you don't connect with everything, may we connect with the idea of church as a belonging place that we continue to come back to when we need that connection with other people and that connection in our spirit with God and one another. So we're going to teach you one round of the chorus first, and then you can sing along as much or as little as you like. But will you stand or rise one more time, and we'll teach you how this chorus goes real quick. Take me back to the place that feels like home, to the people I can depend on. to the faith that's in my bones. Take me back to a preacher and a verse where they've seen me at my worst, to the love I had at first. Oh, I want to go to church. All right, y'all sing along as much as you like. There was a time that I swore I would never go back. I was blind to the truth, didn't know what I had. I was running, I was searching, but every place I turned for healing left me more broken than the last. Take me back to the place that feels like home, to the people I can depend on, to the faith that's in my bones. Take me back to a preacher and a verse where they've seen me at my worst, to the love I had at first. Oh, I want to go to church. Tried to walk on my own, but I wound up lost. Now I'm making my way to the foot of the cross. It's not a trophy for the winners, it's a shelter for the sinners, and it's right where I belong. Take me back to the place that feels like home, to the people I can depend on, to the faith that's in my bones. Take me back to a preacher and a verse where they've seen me at my worst, to the love I had at first. Oh, I want to go to church. Said I want to go to church. More than an obligation, it's a foundation. The family of God, I know it's hard, but we need each other. We're sisters and brothers and all others. Take me back to the place that feels like home, to the people I can depend on, to the faith that's in my bones. Take me back to a preacher and a verse where they've seen me at my worst, to the love I had at first. Oh, I want to go to church. Said I want to go to church. I want to go to church. One more. Said I want to go to church.
It was so good to be with you this morning. I just want to, first and foremost, let's acknowledge how well our kids did this morning. Well done. We love having you in here. We love that you can be welcome just as you are. Noisiness and all, to be expected. One thing before we go, we are continuing, we're still taking stewardship commitments. We're doing awesome. We still have these two goals hanging out here, 20 households, $4,000 per month. We love this church. We know you love this church. We want to be able to make sure that this thing can continue going forward and we can welcome more and more people. And so we're continuing to take on those commitments, those pledges. We're halfway there on the households. We have enough households. We just got to get the commitments in. We are 3/4 of the way there, only with half of the households for the number, for the overall dollar figure. So let's keep it going. We know we're capable of doing this. We know you love your church. We love our church. We want to make sure more and more people are able to participate in this for years and years to come. All right, so with that, you're already standing. I will have you extend your hands to receive the blessing, and I'm going to guarantee that you've never heard a blessing like this before. May you show up your exhausted and sweaty selves. May we show up our exhausted and sweaty selves. May we invite and welcome others who are showing up their exhausted and sweaty selves, knowing that in the process, we are going to figure out how to navigate this life of following Jesus in this world better together. So may that be so.
Take me back to the place that feels like home, to the people I can depend on, in my bones. Take me back to a preacher and a verse where they've seen me at my worst, to the love I had at first. Oh, I wanna go to church. Said I wanna go to What you bringing to the potluck? Sweet tea, deviled eggs, potato salad. You know, spread yourself. The online people are like, what is happening? What's up if you're still watching online? It's just a little treat for you.
Thanks for having me again, y'all. Pleasure. Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, what a dumb thing that happened. I thought I was immune. I was like, I'm never getting this thing. That's my first time. Really? Yeah, I was like, I just don't think I'm gonna get it. I think this is like a thing that passed me by. But wow, did it hit me real hard. And I was so worried. I was like, oh my god, I totally had it. And I was here, meeting people. Good, good. Yeah. The day before, I had played 2 weddings and had a private gig. And didn't hear anything until just a couple days ago.